say this. All signs continue to point to him eventually joining this team. I say that in part because of a lot of the things I've heard behind the scenes, but also publicly and front-facing. You have heard Aaron Rodgers say in that clip right there, I don't want to hold the Steelers hostage. He has done nothing to this point to suggest to the team that he is out on playing quarterback for them. And I'm not suggesting that means that he will just simply sign because of that. But this is a player with a deep respect for Mike Tomlin, a continued communication with Mike Tomlin, a player who has worked out with DK Metcalf at times this offseason, trying to acclimate himself to the wide receiver, and has also hinted that he will be playing for the Steelers. What does that mean? It means nothing in terms of minicamp. Perhaps I think the benchmark we should be looking more towards still at this point is training camp.
All right, so Tim, is that good enough? If he doesn't show up until training camp and he wants to be the starting quarterback of the Steelers, is he going to be ready in time?
Yeah, I think it's good enough. Look, I think when you get to the point where you're over 40, you've played, a couple of decades in the NFL as a quarterback, a team's pursuing you, you're their best option. I think that's good enough. Is it the best possible scenario? No, it's not. The best possible scenario that he's in Pittsburgh working out, leading, building a rapport with the guys that are there, all of that stuff. But it's just not realistic with someone that's played as long as Aaron's played. And so I think what the point Jeff made that really stuck out to me there is the deep respect for Mike Tomlin. I do think that, the way Aaron Rodgers has gone about this with Tomlin, that communication, and I think what, at least to me, feels like a shared understanding that he will be there at some point. It feels to me that both Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, and anyone else that matters would be okay with that, and I think that that's probably good enough.
And I love the point that you made, Tim. You said anyone that matters. In this saga, this situation, the people who matter are Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, and then ultimately his teammates. Those teammates want Aaron Rodgers for week one, and they understand that for week one, you'd like to have him there by training camp. Organized team activities, Aaron Rodgers may argue, aren't necessary. Minicamp, he also may argue, isn't necessary. Tim, as you know, you go through OTAs, you put the same install during mandatory minicamp, then you go through the same install during training camp. And yes, it would be nice for Aaron Rodgers to build that rapport, to have that time with his team beforehand, but obviously that is not the case. And so as long as Aaron Rodgers is signed on that team by the time training camp starts, or even a few days after training camp, as long as you get him by week one, you're going to be happy. Now, as soon as he starts saying, okay, maybe I'm not coming, you don't have him, that's when the bigger scenario happens, because then you need a plan B if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, so what
yeah,
would be
I think ultimately, when you really listen to a lot of, especially the ex-players, they all are totally okay with Aaron Rodgers not being here. It's the other media members that want to just absolutely freak out, sound the alarm, and say, why is Aaron not here? This is ridiculous. He's playing game with the Steelers. What's going on? And yet, ex-quarterbacks, other players, they're all like, no, it makes sense at this point of Aaron Rodgers' career. He doesn't need to be there for any of these other things. He'll be fine. The players, his teammates, like, they don't really care either. Obviously, ideally, you want everyone there, but it just is what it is. I mean, anything that the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing at this point is hardly ideal. And that's why, what Houseback is saying here is like, it's good enough. And quite frankly, that's what the Steelers are. That's who the Steelers are. It's just good enough. That's what they've been with Mike Tomlin for the last decade or so. Good enough. We don't lose game after game after game, but we also don't win playoff game after playoff game. It's good enough. We get to the playoffs, and for the most part, we look good enough. We can kind of hang. So it's just kind of right on brand, right? With who the Steelers have been now, which is frustrating if you're a Steelers fan. I mean, I think that there is legitimate optimism to be had if Aaron is there. I think at this point it's very fair to always be skeptical of Aaron's personality, leadership, all of that type of stuff. But I think he can still play. I think he can still have a lot of success. I think he can legitimately win. But to me, it's just, how does it all flow and fit together? And how do you overcome the adversity? Because I think the one of the bigger things that really stands out to me is Aaron at this point in his career feels unwilling and maybe even incapable of dealing with the ebbs and flow of a season. And that's actually probably what I find most alarming, because every single team, every single player, every single quarterback, whether you're Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, the retired greats, Tom Brady, Manning, Breeze, like throughout the season, you're always going through ups and downs. You're going to lose a game that you shouldn't have. A player's going to make a mistake that crushes your ability to win the game, if not downright loses the game for you. And it's something that you have to overcome. And it feels though when those things have happened with Aaron recently, it's just, let's just kind of blame everyone. And like, it's like he needs everyone to know, I got nothing to do with that. Don't be blaming me for this one. I'm great. I'm doing everything I can. It's the coaching staff. It's the defense. It's the wide receiver. You know, whatever it is. That to me is what I find more concerning than anything else. I do think that could be tampered down a bit with a coach like Mike Tomlin and just the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm fascinated to see if Aaron can get actually integrated with the culture of the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, and if his messaging won't get lost. Because at the end of the day, if Aaron goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, or Mike Tomlin, without a doubt, will be the most competent / alpha coach, the coach who's easily, without a shadow of a doubt, the most in charge, combined with the most competent and the most alpha that Aaron Rodgers has ever had. You could say Mike McCarthy obviously understands offense better than Mike Tomlin. Like, that's just, different sides of the ball. But like, Mike McCarthy wasn't like the alpha. He's not the one that like really controlled everything. Matt LaFleur, I would say, is alpha, but he was a new coach. So he didn't really have the same type of control and pull. Also, obviously, he's going to understand the offense more than Mike Tomlin. But Mike Tomlin is now like the experienced veteran, the actual alpha, the one who's obviously been with the Pittsburgh Steelers forever. He's got the control. He calls the shots. There's no confusion about that. No one questions that. People were questioning, Mike McCarthy, who is he? Matt LaFleur, new coach. Is he good? Is he not? Like, they're not really necessary. You of course, you're going to have some people that are going to question Mike Tomlin on the outside. Oh, is he good enough? Is it time to move on? Like, those kind of conversations are always kind of there to a degree. But it's just like, Aaron Rodgers won't have the ability to kind of cause any of that chaos with Mike Tomlin. And it will be a losing battle, especially if he tries to. Whether within the franchise, whether with the media, it's just not going to happen. So it's just going to be interesting to see how Aaron Rodgers connects to that. Does he fall in line? Is he able to follow that? How does that all work? I'm fascinated. That dynamic is something that I'm most interested in seeing as well. Because I think Mike Tomlin actually has a pretty great balance of having his players' backs, without a doubt, but then also more than willing to call them out. I think in a lot of ways, he's probably like the most intense alpha type coach who holds his players accountable, but will also do a little dirty work to keep them safe and protected, right? Like he will have their back in ways that not all coaches necessarily do, which is why I think he's loved so much, because he's real and he's going to be serious. He's going to be intense. He's going to do all the things that you need a leader to do, but he's not going to leave you high and dry. But also, he's not against calling you out either. Like it's actually it's a pretty great balance, honestly. It really is. And I think at the core of it, you're also always getting something that's authentic. And many times coaches get their back up against the wall and everyone's just trying to save themselves. I mean, like, really, I talked about this in a completely separate video. I think actually maybe it was with basketball. And it was just like, at the end of the day, like, everyone is just trying to take care of themselves. Like, that really is at the core of it. Everyone's just trying to keep their job. Everyone's just trying to get paid. Like, it's everything. Just when you keep zooming in, it's just like, it does come down to me, and not we. As much as everyone preaches we, especially in a team and a franchise. But everyone, is not always like that, especially when they get backed against the wall. And I think Mike Tomlin is one of the more resilient coaches to any of the chaoses that a team can face as well. And, this was years and years ago, probably over 10 years ago, when the Steelers lost and in the playoffs. And they had a really good team, but they just came up short This was in the Ben Roethlisberger era. And they were like, like, why did you lose such a? And he's just like, and it was very honest and just grounded. He was just like, you can't win every year, man. Like it just is what it is. Such is life. You try your best, and you just not every. Only one team gets to win it all, and and it wasn't us. And the conversation didn't need to go any more beyond that. And that was actually one of the first times that I really liked Mike Tomlin beyond just coaching. That was something that I really connected with. It wasn't like he wasn't stumbling over his words. He wasn't twisting things. He wasn't saying we made this mistake and this and this and this or that. He was just like, it just happens. We just didn't win. Like that is actually the answer. We just did not win. There's just nothing more to say about it. We could talk about defense. We could talk about offense. We could talk about mistakes. We could talk about the roster. We could talk about all this type of stuff. And some of it's going to be true. Some of it's going to be twisted. But it's just like, we just didn't win. That's just how it's just what it is. We don't have to make a bigger deal about it than it is in that moment. And I respected that. I really did. It wasn't closed-minded. It wasn't abrupt. It wasn't aggressive. And so I just think Mike Tomlin's a very real person. And I'm not so sure that Aaron Rodgers is that person. Like, that's why I'm fascinated to see how this works. Aaron Rodgers is authentic to a degree, but it's like a different brand of authenticity. It's almost like a little dog who's like fear barking. And it's like, well, that it is authentic for that dog. He's barking. He's ready to go. But like, it's a little bit more of a show than the reality of it. So yeah, I'm interested to see how the more I kind of think about their relationship and that dynamic, like the more interested I am to see how this works, as well as obviously the offensive coaching staff as a whole as well, beyond just Mike Tomlin. So it does feel like Aaron's going to sign with the Steelers, but doesn't seem like it's necessarily going to happen as quickly as some of the media members want it to happen. But if you really ask any ex-player who's not just trying to rile everyone up and doesn't already have some weird beef with Aaron, it just seems like everyone's just totally like, no, this makes sense that he's not going to any of this type of stuff. He doesn't need to. And quite frankly, no one on the roster will actually care either, and neither does the coaching staff. It just kind of is what it is. So I'm excited to see actually what it is. Finally, we're all just kind of waiting and seeing. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Aaron Rodgers hinting that he will indeed sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.